Now I'm sure you've seen a review of this action figure 2-pack before, but have you seen a review where the elbow is not messed up? So this time, I'm really happy to bring you this action figure review. I was actually not planning to buy this action figure, especially because of Batman's messed up elbow. But I was walking around JB Hi-Fi again, and it's now becoming my favorite place to walk around in. I was basically just walking around in JB Hi-Fi. I looked at this 2-pack, I saw it on the shelf, and I was checking the elbows, and they were correct. They were not like messed up, they were not black. So I had to pick it up, and although my wife probably isn't happy that I'm picking up action figures again, this one had to be picked up because the elbows are okay. So let's get into the review. This is a brand new sealed action figure, although it's double sealed. I don't know why that is. It's really weird, but I did not bring this home, customize it, and then put it back in the box. It's just come straight out of the box like that. You could see the cables are still in there and they have not been cut. So yeah, this is a brand new action figure and the elbows are not messed up. So I'm really excited to open this and have a look at it. So the box is consistent with what we've received from McFarlane before. It's just the DC logo at the bottom here, Batman vs Hush. It's for ages 12 and up. A nice big window that you can see the action figures through, which is amazing. The elbows, I'm just so hyped about the elbows. On this side, it basically says Batman vs Hush. Nothing else. There's a DC logo on top, multiverse as well. On the back, we got a nice big image of the figures. These look like renders, so that's pretty cool. We get the diorama as well. We'll take a look at that later on. We get the DC Multiverse logo here, Batman vs Hush up top here. On this side, it says Batman vs Hush, McFarlane Toys, and on the top, DC Multiverse. Alright, so here we have the action figures out of the box, and I'm basically gonna cut these for the first time. And that's gonna be a little bit more difficult, but I'll still do it on camera, so there we go. Cut them up, and I'll basically now remove them from packaging. One thing I don't like about McFarlane is that you get this really cool backdrop in the packaging, but because they put plastic on top of everything, when you take the plastics or when you take the backing out, it's basically going to rip up all of that, so that backdrop is not going to be usable at all. I mean, it's a perfectly good backdrop, but you can't use it because there's going to be a lot of paper ripping marks on there. So I don't know why they do that. It's just really weird, but I would have really appreciated if all the accessories were popped in there in some different way. So now we got everything out of the packaging and the backdrop is basically unusable. Why do you do this, Todd? So looking at the diorama piece, I don't know what's going on here. It's a really cool diorama piece with so much detail sculpted into it, like leaves, like bricks, like that pile of mud here that I don't know what those are. It looks like, I don't know what those are. They look like headstones? No, they look like maybe sculptures, and you get like all of these details as well, but they're not painted in, so they are kind of lacking. There is like a dry brush going on, but it's not that helpful. I mean, if you paint this might look really nice, but yeah, I mean, just as is, it is pretty weird. I mean, there's a lot of sculpted details on there, but the painting does not do it any justice. The stands are just stands. It looks like they have some kind of, I don't know what that is. It looks like they've got some kind of speckling going on. So that might just be like mud texture, because that looks very deliberate. Like we've got it on both the stands. So that looks very deliberate. So it looks like, I don't know, mud splashing around, but that's a pretty cool effect. We also get a headstone that says, "Here lies Jason Todd." And same thing with this as with the diorama. It's basically not painted. So it does look a little bit cheap and kind of crap. And it's hollow, so I mean, it's expected, but it doesn't do this figure any justice. Like that's just flimsy plastic. Alright, so from what I can tell, this thing just snaps onto the base and it looks like that. So if you're looking at it dead on, like straight on, it just looks weird. We also get a shovel, and it looks like there's some dry brushing going on here, or some kind of wash going on here, but the mud parts on the shovel itself, they're basically just silver, so they look like really bad. It looks like the shovel was not made properly. We also get two chunky batarangs, which is like custom for McFarlane now, but they're pretty cool. And we get the trading cards, one for Batman, one for Hush, and they look pretty pristine, very nice, and you get a read up on both the characters. With all the accessories out of the way, let's take a closer look at the reason I bought this 2-pack. And the Batman action figure is pretty cool. The head sculpt looks very Jim Lee, but I just don't like the constantly screaming head. It's just really weird to me that he's constantly screaming, but it is what it is. The ear for me, or the horn for me, is a little bit smooshed in and it's bent, so I might need to heat that up just to get it back into shape. There is a small speck of paint here and the lips are not painted the best, so it is lacking a little bit, but the elbows are gray, which is probably the only reason I bought this 2-pack. There's a lot of good sculpting details. The big black emblem on the chest is pretty nice. The shoulders are very bulky, very well done. Aesthetically, Batman looks pretty awesome. The legs are a bit longer, but then Jim Lee does draw his legs a little bit longer, so that's alright, I guess. There is a little bit of a paint mark here, and there's like a stray hair or something that's stuck to my figure, so I have to figure out how to get that off. But there's a little bit of extra paint here, probably when they were painting it in the factory. And other than that, it looks standard, which is nice. Like the boots, they go up to a point. McFarlane has done some figures where the boots are not pointed up, but that is all cool. And yeah, there's plenty of details on this figure. The sculpt is very well done. There's no additional texture that McFarlane really likes to add to his figures, so this looks very comic accurate, so I really like that as well. The only thing with the cape is that this is a little bit gappy and you can actually see the gray undersuit within, so I might need to basically just swap out the cape to be a cloth goods cape rather than a plastic cape, which I prefer cloth good capes anyway. But yeah, other than that, it looks like a really stellar action figure. So for the Hush figure, very screaming head again. We get the bandages all wrapped up, so that looks pretty cool. It's a very cool effect. The screaming head is not, I mean, it's not the worst in terms of head sculpts. I mean, if you could get him into action poses, it would look pretty cool. But yeah, I just don't like that he's constantly screaming, because you can't pose him any other way. You can't put him in a neutral pose. He has to be doing something to justify that screaming. The trench coat is alright, but then, I mean, if that was open, that would have been a lot better, because I have 2 Hush figures now. I have the single pack Hush as well, so because I have 2, I might customize this to have an open jacket or something like that. The gloves are brown, on the other one it is not, but we'll take a look at that comparison later on. In terms of the trench coat, I mean, it's sculpted really well, so that's nice. There's a lot of details, wrinkles, of that good stuff. You can actually see the seam lines, so that's very well sculpted actually. The trench coat at the bottom looks alright. Yeah, just that is a little bit of a hindrance. The pants are sculpted really well. There's a lot of texture there. Probably not comic accurate, but there's a lot of texture anyway. There's a lot of texture on the boots as well. I think the boots should have been a different color in terms of the comics, but we just get them plain black here. I might paint that later on. There's a big slit at the back of the trench coat, which probably allows you for some articulation. I'm not sure if it does. We'll have to look at it in the articulation section later on. But yeah, there's good texture going on at the back as well. Alright, so back to Batman. In terms of articulation, his head can look up that much, which is basically not at all. He can look down quite a lot, which is pretty good. He can pivot side to side as well, which is not bad at all. There is a joint at the abdomen here, so he can't bend forward that much. I might have to do that hack where you basically cut in a channel and then he can do more things with his abs. But yeah, there's not much torso articulation, not at the top, not at the bottom, so it's pretty disappointing, to be honest. And he gets a little bit of side to side, but he can basically twist, which is the only redeeming quality. In terms of the shoulders, they can go up about that much. They can go down, they can go all the way around. And the butterfly, there is no butterfly, does it? Is it? Oh, there is a butterfly. So there is a butterfly at the back here, but it's basically hidden from everywhere else. So maybe they could have just done away with the butterfly and then it would get maybe a little bit more articulation. I don't know. There's a little bit of dirt here for the biceps. That's weird. But the biceps can basically rotate all the way around, which is nice. Double joint in the elbows, which gives you about that much. So that's pretty deep. The wrist can rotate all the way around and hinge as well. It's a little bit tight for me, but okay. So the wrist can rotate and hinge. The legs can fully split, which is a really nice split. And yeah, it's a ratcheted joint as well. So it's a really good split. The legs can kick up about that much, which is a little bit under 90 degrees, and they can kick back about that much, so back and out, which is not that bad. I mean, it's pretty good. They can kick back quite a bit. Double joint in the knees, very deep, and the ankles can go up, down, pivot, and rotate. No issues there. And also toe hinge. So for Hush, his head can look up not that much because of the trench coat, as well as basically a limitation in the joint. He can look down about that much. He can turn around, no issues. Side to side, no issues as well. The torso, can it do anything? I don't know, it's really difficult. I can move it a little bit. I feel like I am moving it a little bit, but the trench coat basically doesn't allow it to do too much. His hand can go up about that much. Rotate all the way around, no issues. Bicep swivel, no issues. Double joint, very deep. Double elbow, very deep. Wrist can rotate all the way around, no issues. And go up and down. So pretty good. Torso again lacking. Let's turn this guy into that. He can split, but then the trench coat probably has a little bit of say in how much range he gets. He can kick up about that much, which is a little bit under 90, but it's still pretty good. He can kick back a little bit. The butt piece basically goes out of the way. There is a double joint in the knees, which is pretty deep. There is ankle articulation, so back and forth, no issues. He can swivel around, pivot, and also toe hinge. For the only like-for-like comparison, we're looking at the two Hush figures. This one's the 2-pack, this one's the single pack. And the single pack head has, oh look at that, it has so much details in the bandaging. That is crazy, insane details. Very nice. So there's a lot of details in the bandaging in the head. The gloves, the one on the 2-pack has a brown glove, and the one on the single pack has blue gloves, so that's weird. I mean, the trench coats look very similar in color, and the sculpt looks very similar as well. I think they are just the same. Everything else about these figures look just about the same, but then it's just the quality of this head sculpt, which has a lot more details, versus this one, which is a lot more, well, it is still detailed, but then not that good. So it's just weird that we get two completely different kinds of head sculpts. I measured these guys off camera, but for scale, Batman stands around 7.5 inches and Hush stands at around 7 inches. So compared to some other McFarlane figures, on the left we've got the Azrach and R Batman from McFarlane Toys, and on the extreme right we've got the single pack Hush figure. And the Hushes are pretty much the same, but the Azrach and R Batman is a little bit shorter than our Hush Batman here, which is 7.5 inches, which does seem like a little bit too tall. Looking at some other 7-inch figures, on the left we've got the Rebirth Batman, who does look a little bit too small, and on the right we've got the NECA KO Batman, who scales I guess pretty much okay. We've got the Atrocitus Build-A-Fig on the left, and the McFarlane Megafig Killer Croc on the right. Here we have my custom 3D sculpted, printed, and painted Nightfall Bane on the left. On the right, we've got the Reveltech Amazing Yamaguchi Superman. And here we have possibly the best representation of the Hush comics line in action figure format, the Mafex Hush Blue Batman and the Mafex Hush action figure. Although I would consider the Mafex line of the Hush action figures to be my definitive version of the Hush action figures, I think that the McFarlane action figures are still, in a way, really good. For the price point, they're actually very good. The articulation is there, there's a lot of details in the sculpt. Batman does look comic accurate. There's a lot lacking or a lot to be desired from the Hush figure, especially because the trench coat is not open. So I guess you could still custom it, but if you're paying for an action figure, you shouldn't have to customize it to make it look better. However, I still think that these are really good action figures, and they display really well, so it's gonna look cool on the shelf. And because they're such a cheap alternative to the Mafex action figures, I think they're still worth picking up. Although I'm pretty sure, just like Hush got a single pack, Batman will definitely get a single pack release with possibly a closed mouth version. So if you're waiting for that, do continue to wait for that. That's probably going to be a better figure than this one is, just because the head sculpt will be that much better.